in accordance with international law, somebody external to us have an issue with it, and they find a way of imposing their will on us. No. One may say, well, Skerrit, well, why are you bringing this stuff to the parliament? I have an ideological objection to this thing, personally. Because of my own philosophical upbringing. But I'm not in a position, Madam Speaker, to impose my personal ideological, philosophical thinking on the country. Because the failure of the Parliament, to bring these amendments to the Parliament could have serious repercussions for the way we do business in Dominica. And our ability to trade with the world, our ability to be part of the financial system of the world, our ability to be part of the monetary systems of the world. They could stop you from transacting with US currency. They could strike you from dealing with the euros and the pound sterling and the Canadian dollar, and therefore your country will be a village, a credit union. I heard a member on a side talking about CBI. But I will say to her, in the process of educating her, that this is not about CBI. This is not about CBI. Because Barbados doesn't have CBI. St. Vincent and the Grenadines does not have CBI. Jamaica does not have CBI. And all of them, all of us must comply. So it's not about CBI, my friend. It's not about CBI. We must not be so myopic. We must not be so close-minded about our duty and our responsibility to our country. About our country. What country? That's what it is. And when...
Can I ask the members to make their asides a little softer? You are distracting the stenographers. If you need to speak so badly, just go outside for a while.
And, Madam Speaker, I have been following these things, and this is not a today thing, you know. This is not a today thing. That goes way back. It's a whole process. And sometimes, these international organizations, these countries, what they impose on you, they don't impose on themselves. Some of them don't even have a constitution. But as I said, Madam Speaker, we can come here and play politics if we want. We can come here and play partisan if we want. We can come here and talk about labor in Europe if we want. But this has nothing to do with that. So those who want to have their ignorance as a source of pride for them, that's more for them. But all of these countries, and what we'll see, and we've always come to the Parliament to comply. It was about financing of terrorism, money laundering legislation. If you go to the Parliament, there are dozens and dozens of amendments that we brought to the Parliament to comply. And I have always said to our colleagues or friends, because they're all our friends, we're not at war with them, but people know when I meet these governments, I meet these institutions, I speak very candidly with them and to them. They know that. Respectfully so, I do so. But our jurisdiction in the Caribbean is more highly regulated than most other jurisdictions that impose these things on us. When they come and talk about monies coming into our banks and money laundering, what happened to these international banks, money laundering from Mexico, drug money from Mexico and Southern America. Where billions will pass through those banks. As I said, Madam Speaker, I am not here to impose my philosophical and ideological position on the Parliament. All I'm saying, I am cautioning this country that there are some things, and I've said so at the CARICOM level, at the OECS. And this is why I believe, Madam Speaker, the Caribbean institutions, the institutions within the Caribbean, which we're all part of, need to inform themselves about these issues and stand in defense of our sovereignty, the little that we have or allowed to exercise of it. Because no one knows what else. No one knows what else. They may impose on you, and what they impose on you may require a constitutional amendment, which will require a referendum. And they will say, well, forget the referendum, you have to go to Parliament and amend it. Find a way to amend it. And therefore, it's important on these issues, we wrap ourselves from head to toe for national flag. Because these things will have a serious negative impact on our country, on our country's ability to do business. They'll tell you, Madam Speaker, as you will see, that you can't give concessions to this. You can't give concessions to that because, and I have said to the IMF and they say, and they find also the surreptitious of this, that they've been wanting us for years, and we've resisted for years. Want us to stop granting concessions to investors, local and foreign. But you go to their jurisdictions, they have 20-year tax breaks, 30-year tax breaks, also concessions to investors in the country. But they're telling us that we should not give, and they started first, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they started first by making it a fiscal issue. A fiscal issue. By saying that you are denying yourself revenue by giving these concessions. And now they have made it a political issue. Because they couldn't get their way through the fiscal arguments, they have gone through the route of political route, and then if you don't do it, then you're in trouble. There are sanctions. You will go to the blacklist, and when you go to the blacklist, there are all sorts of repercussions when you're blacklisted. And the fact is, Madam Speaker, truth be told, that there is no international law under which they are operating. But they control the financial systems, they control the banks, and that's what it is. So we really, Madam Speaker, sometimes, all of this sovereignty that we boast of in the region are really almost a figment of our imagination. But as a responsible government, we have a duty to the majority, to the people of the country, and we're here to Parliament to do so. But we'll continue our discussions with them. It's an ongoing discussion with them. I said the process is fluid. It changes almost every day. Because, by the time I get out of here this afternoon for lunch, there'll be another correspondence from the OECD on this and say, well, look here, yes, but it's additional stuff. But you never know. You never know. We may very well have to come back next week, or maybe this week to come to the Parliament to put amendments. I don't know. I'll wait to see when I get to the office. And that's the reality. And, and even with regards to this offshore banking system, this is why you recognize, Madam Speaker, offshore banking and international business sector, all of the countries in the OECS implemented at the same time. The same year. That came about, Madam Speaker, in the 90s when the World Bank wanted to assist countries that were dependent on bananas and sugarcane to help them in diversifying their economies. So there was a study done for the OECS, and it recommended to the OECS that we should go through that route. And all of the countries in OECS in 1996 all went through the offshore international business sector. In Antigua, for example, Antigua was one of the leading countries with this. Thousands of jobs, highly paid jobs. And Antigua came from maybe about 3,000 jobs to about 30 jobs in 10 years. And all our countries affected by this, and so forth. And we're not opposed where people feel that there are gaps or the deficiencies or their shortcomings, Madam Speaker. We are always amenable to dealing with those issues, and we have done so. But what I'm saying, Madam Speaker, is everything you try to do, somebody would like you to stop doing it, because in their minds, they believe that we are competing with them. And my friend there on the position mentioned about CBI. There's also residency programs. Yes, all of these things have been targeted. The residency programs, there are countries that don't have CBI, but they have residency programs where you can go into the country and invest, and you'll become a permanent resident in those countries. But all of the developed countries have some form of path to citizenship through residency program. You can go, I don't want to mention any country because I don't want to appear that I am taking on any country, but that's not my intention. But there are countries where you can go to the bank and put $500,000 in, not to the government, but just put it in the bank, or $1 million or $2 million. And if you want to fast track,
I'm asking the members again, please, can they give their sides more quietly? It distracts the stenographers.
And if you want a fast track to citizenship, you put more money. These are developed countries. So do your research. All of us can do our research, go on and do research, and that's done. And in all of those instances, Madam Speaker, no due diligence required. In some of these countries, Madam Speaker, everybody who is wanted in their host country is resident there, drive in and have big homes and mansions and so forth. But let half a person who has a charge and something, most of these charges are politically motivated, were to come into our jurisdiction in the OECS in the Caribbean, and there are also sanctions on you. That's the reality of the world. There are two sets of conditions. And there's some things that I want to say here, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to say here because I don't want it to be misunderstood or misrepresented. And therefore I will not say it. But there are two sets of rules in the world. Two sets of rules in the world. There's no one set of rules for all of us in the world to follow. So, Madam Speaker, this is what it is. And I said, we're in touch with the OECD. in touch with the European Union. We'll continue to protest with our friends in the European Union. When we meet with them, we have opportunity to discuss with them, as we all do, and from the CARICOM perspective and standpoint. But you're not the protest you're talking about, Mr. Linton. Respectful, well-mannered, in accordance with international law and rules and norms and customs. No.
Please order.
No. And I can tell you, Mr. Linton, leader of the opposition, I can tell you that sometimes these things become feisty, but you have to have a certain level of self-control to not become physical or disrespectful. And, Madam Speaker, I have an abundance of that. Madam Speaker, I have an abundance of self-control, Madam Speaker. So I put it before us seriously, before the Parliament. Those who want to make it partisan, doesn't matter for you. Doesn't matter for you. That's all we see, and that's all we're able to contribute on. And we do not have a global perspective of things. We lack knowledge of things. We don't do research on things. We don't read on things. We don't seek guidance on things. That's matter for you. That's matter for you. That's the matter for you. So, Madam Speaker, I do hope that these amendments will have the concurrence and approval of the House. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, this for the record, let me just note that on 2 occasions in recent times when I've had issue with the time that you have kept for my presentations, yes, you were wrong on the record and I was right. So I'm not sure what that admonition is about.
You took your time from a different place that I took my time. My watch works and I give members their time. But you were out of line to say what you said, and I insist I tell you.
Madam Speaker,
and I insist you can say what you like, you know, which of course you do anyway.
Why
no, I was not wrong. And please refrain from...
Why is it so difficult for you to agree you were wrong?
No. 2.5 minutes you said I robbed you and went on. Well, take me to court now, as is your habit. For the 2.5 minutes. Maybe the court will give it to you. 2.5 minutes.
Madam Speaker, on this matter
Shame.
of the...
Madam Speaker, I'll pray to the Lord that I do not behave myself badly. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I listened to the member who introduced the bill, member for Arosa Central, the Honorable Joseph Isaac, introducing the bill, and I'm trying to find out and figure out where he is coming from, because what was circulated is a 3-sentence bill, and then we are being presented with this amendment there for the first time. Now, having heard the Prime Minister, and I agree most of what the Prime Minister says, except that I do not agree with his line of argument, but the issues raised, I don't have a problem with that, in terms of the disadvantage faced by the small countries and developing countries as far as the first world is concerned. But I think he missed to mention some important issues which I hope to raise. I'll be very brief, I can say that. Madam Speaker, what the Honorable Prime Minister has failed to tell us is how long this request from the developed world, OECD, EU, how long it has been before this government to make the amendments that they're seeking. Because he seems to have suggested or stated that if we do not do it by the end of the month, there will be repercussions. So at least the nation, and seeing that it is so important, I agree with you, employment implications in international trade, etc. However, in putting up the argument, the Honorable Prime Minister has responsibility as Minister of Finance, has an obligation to indicate and inform the nation how long has this matter been before his government, and why it is only now it is coming that it has to be done by the end of the month. That's okay, I just raising the question. So this is an important consideration. Madam Speaker, what I see this legislation doing and the implications of it, not just for Dominica and the other islands, but the pressure has been put on those islands, it's really surrounds the issue of good diligence, the issue of transparency in the administration and in terms of doing international business. This is what it's about. We cannot say, well, it's happening in Panama and other countries. So why complicate the issue? Why complicate the problem in the international community? If it is already a problem, why the small islands like we are right now trying to come into a situation where these developed countries have to put the pressure on us? It is a question of, and the Prime Minister has never in his presentation referenced the fact that the question of transparency and good due diligence in accepting and identifying financiers of persons wanting to invest in our country. This is the problem. It's a serious problem. The problem surrounds, this problem really goes, and the pressures have been put in here because of, one, money laundering issues, and the question of tax evasion by those people, international community, who want to use our weak legislation to invest. And these developed countries have a right to protect their interests. And we, as the receiving investors, have an obligation to do things based on international principles. And this is what the request is being made about. So yes, we can go all around, present some socialist concerns about what the third world do, what the third world will not do. But what is not correct to do is to present and give the world and give Dominica the impression that we have, well, you can go if you want to. We give the world the impression that we in a situation where we must do X and or we have been put pressure. We are presenting the third world as a bad country, as a bad countries. And anytime we need assistance, we have to go to them, the developed world. We just passed legislation with respect to creed, that they'll be financing our redevelopment. So why present here and give the impression that we are being unfairly treated as far as in terms of good governance and in terms of transparency in international business, Madam Speaker. And this is where I take strong objection to the recognizing, accepting his concern, yes, but the way it is presented to us, that it is not our fault. It is because we have been pressured, that what is being requested of us is not fair, it is not right. The international community is also listening. They're also listening to see our Minister, or Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, giving the nation and the House of Assembly the impression that they are being treated very unfairly. And what are the implications it has for us in terms of receiving assistance from them, and it is not the right thing to do, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there is no doubt that the question of the Citizens by Investment program of these islands also have play part the reasons why the international and developed world are getting at us that way. Because again, it goes back to the lack of sufficient due diligence in terms of identifying those persons. We in Dominica don't even know how many citizens have been granted, how many persons have been granted passports under that program. We don't even know. Many of them are wealthy people. At some point or the other, they are going to have interest in investing in Dominica. Might be in that world as well. So it is the interest of the developed world to ensure that they protect their interests, and we, as the one receiving the development that we need the employment, we need the investment, but we have to put things in place properly to ensure that it is done in the right way and international community, Madam Speaker. This is what the pressure is about. This is what it is wrong. Something is wrong. When it's wrong, it's wrong. If it is wrong for small business here in Dominica to evade social security, evade income tax. It is also wrong for the international investors to come here and evade income tax and so on in their country. And we have an obligation as international community people to do the same thing and ensure that we encourage good practices and good governance practices in whatever we do, Madam Speaker. So yes, I can't even say the full implications of the amendment. This is why it is so important. Given what the Prime Minister just said, it is so important to us that there should have been, in advance. So that let the persons out there have, I'm not trained in international financing, but there are persons out there I know well trained in that area. They could comment on it and provide reasons why we can defend it and not go along with it or go along with it, Madam Speaker. So for the time being, and based on the presentation of the Prime Minister, I have no reason not to support this amendment, Madam Speaker.
Countries that were producing bananas at a cheaper rate than us. And so it is the same kind of thinking that has come down the line. Because we lost our green gold, so to speak, bananas, which was generating tremendous economic activity and wealth in our small islands, our governments then had to be innovative and came up with areas where they thought we had a comparative advantage and went into the financial services sector. And that's how we got into the sector in the mid-90s, Madam Speaker. And so, again, the more developed countries, as the Prime Minister said, felt that that was taking away capital and funding and monies from their jurisdictions and putting it into our jurisdictions because of our innovation. And so they had to curb it because that was competing with their own economies. And that is what we're talking about here, Madam Speaker. That put simply, that is what it is, that the more developed countries believe that all countries must compete on a level playing field. And any law that you have in your country that seeks to give you an unfair advantage in the international community has to be removed. Pure and simple, in layman terms, that is what we are talking about. And we know that the world has become a global village right now, Madam Speaker. No country can operate in isolation. In London and in the more developed financial centers of the world. That is what we are here talking about, Madam Speaker. But we know that, like I said, all governments have become victim to those rules and regulations. It was in the late 1990s that we were first blacklisted. This government wasn't in power then, but we came to power and we had to continuously amend our legislation to fall in line with the global financial markets and the global financial regulation. That is what it means, Madam Speaker. So I really do not understand why Senator Baptist would give a different skew on what we are trying to do here. The global financial network, as it were, and blacklisting has repercussions that would damage our trade and our ability to trade with the rest of the world. That is what it is. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to make my brief contribution on this amendment to the Offshore Banking Act, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, from the words of the Prime Minister, he said that we have a deadline of by January 2019, this January, Madam Speaker. And we are getting documents late during the sitting of this Parliament. Actually, I received mine at 10:44 a.m., Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to know that there is a genesis of all these things happening. And I want to believe that the origin is from the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And one of the key elements in this monitoring organization, Madam Speaker, is the conduct of these countries and the administration and their financial sector and their due diligence. How prudently that these countries collectively administer their due diligence, Madam Speaker. So we're speaking about CARICOM, we're speaking about the OECS, and the financial administrative process and transactions that go through the banking systems in these countries, Madam Speaker. Because, Madam Speaker, we must not be fooled by really partisan rhetoric about the situation at hand. Because those things are not just placed on any country or any government because of any partisan thing. Those things are placed on the country because of activities that go on, Madam Speaker. And to make it brief, Madam Speaker, to make it brief, when you have a CBI program, Madam Speaker, and when you have passport things, one of these people's biggest concerns is that those schemes are open to abuse by criminals and sanctioned, busting business people, Madam Speaker. And we have seen those things going on. So it's not a matter about they will come and do this or this setting a bar for themselves and they setting another one for you. No. It is a matter of conduct. It's a matter of history, Madam Speaker. And our track record have been bad, Madam Speaker, over the past couple of years, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, worse again, as we attract foreign investors, Madam Speaker, these countries have an issue about tax evasion. That is where the matter lies. So what do we do? That's why we are saying on this side that it's important that we put good measures to protect our CBI program. It is good to talk about it now, but we need to be a bit more reactive, Madam Speaker. We need to be more innovative, proactive in using the funds of the CBI so that we can have some level of sustainability and resilience, Madam Speaker. And our government of this day has not showed that. I'm not satisfied that we have shown that we have certain financial investments from our government, that when these people really come and attack us, that we can stand on our own. We need to put those things in place, Madam Speaker. And I'm telling you, when I heard the Honorable Minister of Trade, Honorable Ian Douglas, spoke about the loss of the agricultural sector and preferential treatment and bananas and whatnot, Madam Speaker, people must eat fig. We saw how the price of bananas went after the hurricane, Madam Speaker. So fig, bananas is a treasure. People still exporting. We need to diversify. Madam Speaker, we heard about the coffee plant and where it is, right in the member's kingdom, right in his constituency, Madam Speaker.
Please get back on track.
So, Madam Speaker,
get back on track, please.
The offshore sector, Madam Speaker, cannot be the only sector for economic activity and growth. What we get from the offshore sector, Madam Speaker, the revenues, must be used properly for sustainable employment, health services, and other social things, retirement and lot for the people of this country, Madam Speaker. And what we are seeing here is that, I mean, the Minister of Finance, Madam Speaker, he has just told us in a few words that they have failed, Madam Speaker. They have failed to do those things. And they are down on the final walkout to come on this side of the House, Madam Speaker. And this is it. This is the last walk. And that's how I see it, Madam Speaker. And I'm saying that there is no reason for me not to support the bill because of putting Dominica where it should be and the position. But, Madam Speaker, the statements that the Prime Minister came and made, the Minister of Finance, the supporting statements, Madam Speaker, they cannot be the only reasons why we are here, Madam Speaker. And let us note that the minister did say that other parliaments in the Caribbean have been meeting often on those bills, you know, often on doing it. So what happened to us here in Dominica? There is no need for us to meet often as well. There is no need for us to have a white paper on the matter. I mean, come on. We have been hit in 2015 by Tropical Storm Erica. We have been hit by Maria in 2017. I mean, now is the time to sit down and say, look, let us reform those sectors properly. Let us sit down and do what we have to do. No, I mean, Madam Speaker, we are talking about things that are being imposed on us. So if we sit and we have the proper consultation with the right stakeholders and with your parliamentary opposition, then you can come and say, well, look, we didn't have any bipartisan meeting. We are only getting things now. So, Madam Speaker, in closing, I will support all the amendments, Madam Speaker. We need it. We need it. But, Madam Speaker, the genesis of how we get there, Madam Speaker, we have to be mindful of that. Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker, if it pleases you. I do apologize. I do apologize, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, thank you for the correction. I guess sometimes the difference between the court load and this one is sometimes you mix the terminologies. Madam Speaker, as it relates to the amendment to the act that the member spoke of, and the Prime Minister made his pronouncements as to the reasons surrounding his reasoning as it relates to the act or the bill. Madam Speaker, it is important to recognize that one of the reasons why these international organizations ensure that certain things are done is because there must be issues arising on a global perspective. There must be issues. And they did not just wake up one night or one morning and said to themselves, well, there seems to be an issue and we're just going to put that issue on the small countries. This is not correct. Most of the times when these international organizations bring those different international legislation, it's because they have done in-depth research as to what is going on. And therefore, one would realize if we are in these third world countries, and sometimes our systems that we put in place, the mechanisms that we put in place are not sound, it means it's easy for any of these illegal offshore banks to get into the system. And therefore, I strongly, and I will endorse these amendments because it is better for us in the long run. It will be better for us in the long run because it would enable us to be able to have an international perspective on things that are affecting us in one way or the other. So the whole issue of tax evasion plays a fundamental role in what is going on there, Madam Speaker. And therefore, Madam Speaker, let us not only look at it as the bigger countries imposing things on the smaller countries. We talk about resilience. We talk about our country going to be able to stand up among so many other countries and have our big muscles up. Well, now is the time to come up with the big muscles. Now is the time to show the rest of the world that we are ready to work collectively in a system that is affecting every single one of us, especially when it is done on an illegal basis. And I applaud the whole issue, and I applaud this bill today, and that we will continue to make the necessary amendments and do what we have to do in order that our country is exemplary according to all the rest of the other countries in the region and in the world for a better offshore banking system. Thank you.
I just want to let the member know the standing orders require when you move from your seat, you let the speaker, you get permission from the speaker to do so. I thought your colleagues would have told you so. It doesn't matter, you still have to request it.
Noted.
You told him and he didn't obey you? Oh. Well, the cameraman doesn't request. Okay, good, wonderful. Can we go on, please?
Good. Madam Speaker, I rise to fully support the bill presented. Madam Speaker, I listened to the members on the other side, and I swear all I heard was an empty barrel rolling down a hill. Madam Speaker, the only person I can respect here is the Honorable Hector John, who clearly articulated this bill is over my head. Huh? No. Senator Hector John, in an aside, he clearly stated that this was over his head. And Madam Speaker, many other people, the bill is clearly over their head. And as the Prime Minister clearly articulated, this thing started a long time ago. Many of us remember the whole issue of the banking and what they call Know Your Customer, KYC. And many of us here today will remember when the banks wanted to know who their customer was. But clearly, the banks already knew who the customers were. The banks knew where we lived, where we worked. However, they had to do many things. I remember as an individual, I had to make the bank write a letter to me so that I could go to the post office and get it and bring it back to them to prove my address. All of this is being done not by our own will, but by the will imposed by many of these large countries. And they have their idea, they have their ideology, and we know it is being done for them to maximize on the monies that remain in their country. And by curbing that, it reduces the investments in our country, it impacts on the banking transactions, and obviously will eventually impact on employment. And if you look at the issues that are at hand, many persons have tried to align them with the Citizen by Investment Program. But they're between 14 to 15 countries in CARICOM. But guess what? All of them have to adhere to these rules. But guess how many countries actually use the CBI program? Only 5. So clearly, the impetus is not based on a CBI program. It is based on the agenda of these OECD countries. And as the Prime Minister said, most times they don't impose these things on themselves. And if you look and you listen and you've read, and if the opposition really read those rules, they would see it's a matter of competition. So the same concessions that you give to some persons, they are saying now that these concessions are to the advantage, and as a result, they're going to impact you. And we know that when they impact you, the hardest way to impact a country is to impact on the ability to transact finances. And if you are blacklisted, just imagine you will no longer be able to transact. Imagine you have a business today and all you can do is accept cash transactions. You can clearly imagine the impact that it's going to have on you and on your business. So we have to ensure that even when you hear the opposition say all of these things, in the end they say they support it. But because of petty politics, they say all of these irrelevant things just to mislead you. But in the end, they know that these things are not being done because of a CBI program. They know it's not being done because we have done things wrong. It's just that because Big Brother, as we would say, wants to ensure that they have the majority of the money for themselves. And we have to ensure that we put things in place, and we have things in place. And I think the Caribbean has to, and the whole of CARICOM has to work together. And they have to ensure we work together in the best interest of all of our countries, because in the end, all of us will be impacted. They would rather see us as a slave plantations than as progressive countries moving forward. So, Madam Speaker, I fully support this bill that's been presented to the House. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I intended not to say anything further because to me, when the Prime Minister, our Honorable Prime Minister, did his address there, to me it was clear. But I'm very disappointed because you could see that the opposition was not well researched. And just for the interest of the general public, I think I need to read something because to me, I'm so disappointed. Even the leader of opposition could not even compose himself as the leader of opposition to at least say something on the matter. Then the Honorable Senator Isaac Baptist came in there, my friend, but in this matter, we have to talk professionally. I'm very disappointed. It's like, and I'm going to read it, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the existing Act, Section 57 says, subsection 1, and on the side is exemption from tax. 1, no income tax, capital gains tax, or other direct tax or may be imposed or levied in Dominica upon the profits or gains of the license in respect of offshore banking business it carries from within Dominica. Madam Speaker, our Honorable Prime Minister and our Senator, the backup man for Roseau Central, clearly said it's an issue of competition. If you go on the internet, and you guys should do those things, simple things. And that's my biggest disappointment with the honorable members on the other side.
Thank you.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Just search tax incentive in the US. And you see a litany of tax incentives from if you go to New York to different states. If you do it in Europe, you'll see a similar situation. So it is a matter of competition. But as our Honorable Prime Minister said, it's also an issue of size, relative size of economies. So here we are as a small economy, trying to find our way and our niche in the world with a background of slavery. And after that, a background of being colonies. And here it is, our Honorable Prime Minister is asking the opposition members for us to come together in unity, unity of purpose, the same nationalistic approach that I was talking about. Again, they are failing again, miserably. And I want to say, on the matter of timing, in this honorable house, Madam Speaker, we on the opposition side and on the side which I'm on now, the right side, we pass legislation similar to this one. So what it is it's almost like a chess game in the world, where The European Union, though we appreciate the support we have gotten from them, but every man trying to look at his economic interests. And it's a chess game. And every time we make a move to try to improve ourselves, as the OECS, the CARICOM area, they are just squeezing in on us. So we make a move, they make a move. We make a move, they make a move. And they're squeezing in until, if we do not unite, one as a country and as a CARICOM region, we will be checkmate, Madam Speaker. So what we need to do is stick together.
Can I ask the member for Salisbury to contain himself, please?
So,
you don't even know when you speak? Tells a lot.
so yes, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, when we come to this honorable house, the honorable Parrot from Salisbury, you need to relax yourself. I know you're under pressure down there, but relax. Relax. I know this matter is above your head. We understand that. But let me just wind up. Yes. So, Madam Speaker, what we need to do as Dominicans and CARICOM members is really come together and understand that if we go on the radio or the television and say any negative things about our countries in this region, we'll be hurting ourselves. You cannot want to burn down the house at any cost so that you can take over after, which will never happen. What we need to do is do our research, come in this honorable house, and really talk on the substantive matter. So what I would like to say there, we need to look at, one, we as a people focus on ensuring that Dominica is truly economically and politically independent by carving our niche and supporting when positive things come here to this honorable house. So, Madam Speaker, without further ado, I think that the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, the Honorable Senator Robert Tong, and myself, I think we have clarified to the public that this matter is a matter that is an issue of competition, global competition, and we as small fish in the large ocean, we are just trying our best to survive. And therefore, I have no doubt that all of us on this side will always stick together to support what is the best interest of Dominica. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled Offshore Banking Amendment Act 2019 be read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The bill will now be read a second time.
Offshore Banking Amendment Act 2019.
The bill now stands committed to a committee of the whole House to be considered clause by clause. House resumes, and I have to report that the bill passed through the committee stage with several amendments. The question is that the report of the committee on the bill be adopted. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Third reading.
Madam Speaker, I beg to do the third reading, Madam Speaker, of the bill entitled the Offshore Banking Act, Amendment Act of 2019.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled the Offshore Banking Amendment Act of 2019 be read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Offshore Banking Amendment Act 2019.
The bill has been read a third time and passed accordingly.
Secondly, Madam Speaker.
These amendments are intended to fulfill the requirements of the European Union in respect of tax. The EU and the OECD. Madam Speaker, the Council of the European Union and the representatives of the governments of the member states of the EU adopted a resolution on a code of conduct for business taxation with the objective to curb harmful tax competition. The original focus of the code of conduct was on the EU member states. However, member states of the EU now require a commitment by third-party countries to promote and adopt the tax principles of the European Union. The European Union Code of Conduct Group for Business Taxation is a body which was established by the Council of the European Union to monitor and assess jurisdictions for compliance against their criteria for tax transparency and fairness. According to the Code of Conduct, tax measures which provide for a significantly lower effective level of taxation, including zero taxation, than those levels which generally apply in member states in question, are to be regarded as potentially harmful and therefore covered by this tax code. 5 criteria are then used to assess whether such measures are or are not effectively harmful. In doing its assessment of tax legislation in various countries, the Code of Conduct Group have prepared a number of Council conclusions, including the creation of a European Union list of non-cooperative jurisdictions for tax purposes. Countries that are determined not to be in compliance with the standards set by the global organizations have been placed on a negative list. Countries which are deemed to be in total non-compliance are placed on a so-called blacklist. And those who have given a commitment to undertake such reforms to bring them in line with the standards are placed on a so-called grey list. Madam Speaker, the European Union, in undertaking its assessment of the harmful tax practices in respect of Dominica's legislation, have identified the concessions granted to international business companies to be at variance with the standards which have been set by the European Union Code of Conduct Group for Business Taxation. Madam Speaker, the government of Dominica fully supports the principle of fairness in tax matters. But the government is also of the view that all countries should be allowed to develop policies that encourage investments in any sector that can contribute to its economic development. In the 1990s, when challenges first arose in the banana industry, Caribbean countries, including Dominica, moved to encourage investment in the offshore and in the financial services sector. These new sectors were targeted as they provided new employment opportunities, as well as serving as options for raising revenue through new fees. To encourage these investments, international business companies registered under the International Business Companies Act were therefore made eligible to benefit from certain taxes. Specifically, the international business companies are granted exemptions from the payment of income and other domestic taxes. Madam Speaker, members of this House, in the assessment of the European Union, these concessions create an inequity in the payment of tax, and that it has the effect of encouraging international companies to avoid the payment of tax in their respective jurisdictions. The proposed amendments will remove the provision of these exemptions over time. Madam Speaker, the amendments being proposed were subject to several rounds of discussions with the European Union and the OECD Tax Secretariat, as well as experts in the field of taxation. These discussions continued even after the documents had been circulated to this House. As a result, Clause 3 of the circulated bill will be replaced with a new Clause 3 during the committee stage. Madam Speaker, the substantive change includes the amendment of the current Section 109. The current Section 109 actually states as follows. 1. Notwithstanding the provision of any other written laws, a company incorporated under the Act shall, subject to subsection 3, be exempt from the payment of taxes, duties, and similar charges for a period of 20 years from the date of incorporation. 2. The Exchange Control Ordinance does not apply to a company incorporated under this Act. And 3. The registrar shall, on payment of the prescribed fee, issue a certificate of exemption for the purposes of subsection 1 to a company entitled to the exemption. With this bill, Madam Speaker, Section 109 of the Act is amended by deleting subsection 1 and substituting it with the following. Subsection 1 now reads, subject to subsection 1A, and notwithstanding the provisions of any other written law, a company incorporated under this Act on or before the 31st day of December 2018 shall, subject to subsection 3, be exempt from the payment of taxes, duties, and similar charges. 1A, subsection 1 shall cease to apply to a company referred to in subsection 1 from A, the date on which the company has been wound up or dissolved in accordance with Part 8 of this Act, or B, 31st December 2021, whichever happens earlier. Madam Speaker, the original amendment proposed would effectively remove the provision under which the concessions to IBCs are currently granted. Instead, the new subsection 1 that will be proposed at the committee stage would instead immediately cease the exemptions for companies incorporated from the 1st of January 2019. IBCs incorporated after 31st December 2018 would be subject to the tax laws of Dominica. The exemptions would only continue to apply to companies that were already incorporated as at December 31st, 2018. The new subsection 1 is expressed to be subject to subsection 1A. Subsection 1A would have the effect of ending exemptions to those companies permitted to continue with the exemptions under section 1 by the year 2021 for the latest. IBCs incorporated before 31st December 2018 would continue to enjoy the benefits of exemptions until they are either wound up or until 2021, whichever occurs first. From 2021, exemptions would not be extended to any international business company. Exemptions would cease to exist under the International Business Companies Act. Madam Speaker, and I read the amendments in detail for the benefit of the House, Madam Speaker. Clause 3. Delete clause 3 and substitute the following. 3. Section 109 of the Act is amended by deleting subsection 1 and substituting the following. Amendment of Section 109. Subject to Section 1A, and notwithstanding the provisions of any other written law, a company incorporated under this Act on or before the 31st day of December 2018 shall, subject to subsection 3, be exempt from the payment of taxes, duties, and similar charges. 1A. Subsection 1 shall cease to apply to a company referred to in subsection 1 from A, the date on which the company has been wound up or dissolved in accordance with Part 8 of this Act, or B, 31st December 2021, whichever is earlier. Madam Speaker, a country which is negatively listed by the European Union could face a number of challenges with doing financial transactions within the global financial system. Governments being aware of the importance of being able to operate fully in the global economic space is therefore proposing these amendments for the consideration of Parliament. Madam Speaker, I therefore commend the International Business Companies Amendment Act for the consideration of the Parliament. Thank you.
The bill is now before the House for debate.
Madam Speaker, the presentation from the Honourable Minister suggested that, as was the case with the amendments that came before the House this morning for the offshore banking legislation, these amendments too are driven by concerns of the European Union, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and they have been around for some time. What we are not being told, Madam Speaker, is how long these amendments that we understand other Caribbean countries, other developing countries have pursued, have implemented in their parliaments. How long have we been sitting on these? But the specific amendment before the House this morning for the International Business Companies Amendment Act is not what was circulated to us, as was the case with the offshore banking amendment. And the Prime Minister explained that this is very fluid. Every day or every other day, something comes up meriting consideration. I've heard mention made today, Madam Speaker, that the offshore sector for these islands emerged in importance when we were losing the banana trade back in the 1990s. That comes out of consultations and suggestions from the World Bank, other players that seemed to have an interest in how we went forward, what was going to happen with the exit of the banana revenue. What we're not hearing this time around in this phase, because essentially we have come to this Parliament this morning On this side, and we have listened to what amounts to death announcements being read for the offshore sector, whether it be the banking sector or it be international business companies. Nobody so far, Madam Speaker, has suggested whether or not, without what is being removed from the legislation in terms of the tax incentives, whether the offshore banking business in Dominica can continue to be viable, or whether international business companies operating in Dominica can continue to be viable. And if they're not going to continue to be viable, what are we looking at? The new legislation, the amendments that we're making, how do they position the sector? Do they make us worse off? Or do they offer us some opportunities where we can retool, we can reshape, we can reposition, and we can protect what this government has been pursuing for the last 2 decades, which is a viable economic source of revenue for the nation state of Dominica. And so the question is, what's the plan? What's the forward plan? Yes, the OECD has mandated, has dictated that these things need to be done, and we are doing them so we can stay off the OECD blacklist. We in Dominica, especially at the level of leadership, we have a responsibility to engage with the rest of the world. And I'm happy to hear that engagements have been taking place. I noticed the Prime Minister is indicating, well, this is not a partisan matter, but we have never had any discussions on these matters locally across the political divide in Dominica. But this government has been serving the nation for close to 2 decades. The question now is, what's going to happen going forward? We are putting these amendments in place. We have to do them because we have no choice. But what does it say about what we had and what we are changing? What we are changing to, how is it going to serve us? And if what we are changing to is not going to serve us as well as what we had before, what do we have to show for the representation that we have made on this issue over the years? Because we all have a right to live in the global space, you know. Small islands, big islands, we have a right to exist. We have a right to exist. And based on that right to exist, it is incumbent on the leadership of countries around the world, whether large or small, to effectively and successfully make their case for things that are in the enlightened self-interest of their countries. I'm not saying it's easy, but we have to engage. And what I would like to know is, what has been the result of all our discussions with these bigger players? Because all I hear when members of the other side open their mouth is how wonderful we are and how great we are in terms of negotiations and how many friends we have around the world. How is that benefiting us right now? When the sectors that for the last 2 decades have been important to the growth of the economy are under attack from the very same people. What is the quality? What is the success rating of our representation and our negotiating skills and ability that we claim we have so much of? And in a very simple way, that is what faces us today, because all of the incentives that defined the viability and the competitiveness of the offshore banking sector, of the international business companies sector, all of that, we are stripping it away at the behest of dictates from certain players in the international community. And so, having done that now, what are we saying to the people of Dominica? Because the people of Dominica were hoping that there would be growth in jobs, growth in employment opportunities, growth in the economy, growth in standard of living coming from successfully building these sectors. We must be clear to them now and must be honest in saying to them what the reality is today. That we have come to a point where the government, whether it is acting alone or acting in collaboration with other OECS governments or other governments in CARICOM or other governments in region, have failed to convince the bigger players in Europe, in America, wherever, that we too have a space in the global village, a space that must be protected, a space that cannot be shielded away from the wealth of people in the developed world who wish to share their wealth with the people of these islands and who wish to put their wealth to work in our economies. We are interdependent world. We are an interdependent world. And what we are hearing today is that as small island states, regardless of what we say or do, we are powerless to stand and effectively protect the viability of our states in the international community. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I'm sorry the member for Roseau Central wasn't there to ask you to compose yourself. And I didn't address you. And I noticed you all were very quiet when the.
Please let's have one person speaking.
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I noticed the members on the other side were very quiet when the Minister for Tourism, Senator Robert Tong, was referred to as the backup man for Roseau. You all didn't say anything. You're still not saying anything. So he's the backup man for Roseau? Huh? Where's the backup man for Roseau? And I noticed you all were very silent as well when the very same senator was suggesting. Yes, Madam Speaker. Yes, Madam Speaker. I noticed that they were silent as well when the Honorable Senator was referring to the members on this side and the contributions made as empty barrels making noise. Yeah. So I hope nobody will take any objection now to me having listened to both the front man and the backup man for Roseau to say that their contribution sounded very much to me like two empty barrels being kicked around Roseau by somebody who will remain nameless. I'm not going to say who kicked it, but somebody's kicking two barrels around Roseau. That's what it sounds like to me. So, Madam Speaker, with these few remarks, I will ask the government side, if they so desire, to indicate what's next. What's the plan? We agree with these amendments. We agree they're being imposed. What's next for us? What's next for us?
Madam Speaker, I want to bring to the attention of the House and of the country a simple fact. All of these amendments we make are of legislation that were brought into the Parliament and passed by the Parliament by the United Workers' Party. And they're saying, and the European OECD saying to us in 2019 that this legislation are issues with them.
The member will deny speaking again, but can he go a little softer, please?
Now, the leader of the opposition, Madam Speaker, is talking about our engagement to those. Madam Speaker, I don't have to come here. The world knows Dominica's position on many issues, honestly. We don't fight with people, but we speak very candidly and very firmly with this. And I will say to him, when he talk about we have a right and a space, yes, all those things are fine. But look at this, Mr. Linton, leader of the opposition. Only every year, the world goes to the United Nations and votes against the embargo against Cuba. But it is held because one country says that I shall impose sanctions on you, impose an embargo on you, by passing the legislation in the Congress, the Helms-Burton Act, which forbids any but any Cuban from going into any American-owned entity. So they can't go into a hotel. That is the Hilton or Marriott brand. So yes, you will push back when these issues have been posed on you. Yes, you will protest. Yes, you will engage them in discussions. Yes, you will draw to your attention that that which they're proposing to you is contrary to international law and best practices. Yes, you will do all those things. But don't give the impression as if, well, there's something that can be done. We can say no to them. Yes, we can say that. But how foolish we would be and how irresponsible we would be to not recognize the reality of the situation. And every CARICOM government has sought to oppose that which has been pushed on us. Because we believe in a fundamental way that there is a misconception and a wrong perception of how things are being done by us in the Caribbean. And the world knows that when it comes to cooperation on security matters and all of the issues which the world continues to confront with, the Caribbean region, Dominica included, always stand at the forefront. At the forefront. Because, and this region is the safest region in the world. The Caribbean region is the most respectful region in the world. And we are the most cooperative region in the world. So if Mr. Linton is suggesting that I go to, the leader is suggesting I go to Europe and throw stones and burn down the city, that's what you're proposing? What else? I'm asking you. I'm asking you. You ask me. No. Yeah. You see this? You see this, Madam Speaker? You see this, Madam Speaker? No, I can't yield to you. I can't yield to you. No. You see, Madam Speaker?
I heard the word if, and this is why I didn't go further.
Yeah. I am well within the rules, Madam Speaker. I am very careful in that. Well within the rules, Madam Speaker. I thank you for recognizing that. The point is, Madam Speaker, there are many of us who will not agree with those things from a personal perspective. But I have always maintained that it is not proper for any one of us in the region to impose our personal feelings or views on the whole thing. We have to go, we're part of this process. And the issue of when we got to know. Madam Speaker, this is an ongoing process, Madam Speaker. It's an ongoing process. It's not a situation where they have written to you and tell you, these are the 5 things you must do, and these are all the things we'll ask you to do. Today you do something. This is why when we went in December to pass the legislation December 12, after that you got another set of demands. Now, the CPC, Madam Speaker, the Chief Parliamentary Draftsperson must draft those things. So they're not sending to you from Europe the draft legislation. We must draft it here. When we draft it here, we must send it to them to find out whether it's okay. They have to send it back to us. They have to send it back to us. As a matter of fact, Madam Speaker, we wrote to them on a couple of additional amendments we wanted to make here. An issue of even the whole issue of a grandfathering clause that will cover all of the issues that they are bringing to us rather than all of these pieces of legislation. But as of today, this morning, Madam Speaker, they haven't gotten back to us. They haven't gotten back to us. So it is a fluid thing. It continue. They agree to these things, then they come back to you and then you have to do this and do that. Then the agent's office must draft these amendments. And people who know about drafting is a highly technical issue because you cannot amend one legislation without looking at the others. So it's a process. So don't come here and give the impression that we have had this for 18 years. I don't know we're bringing it here. This thing is this year, last year, December, late, Christmas time, people writing to you. This is why I'm saying, by the time I go to the office this afternoon, we may very well have additional correspondence. So this is not the end of it all. This is not the end of it all. It's a process, Madam Speaker, and we continue to do these things. Now, I can say to the country that very early in recognizing the demand by the CFATF and other jurisdictions in respect to the international financial sector, we have ensured that we have never relied too heavily on this sector. As a matter of fact, Madam Speaker, there have been discussions at the cabinet level because of the numerous requests for amendments to legislation and so on, that we believe that it might be in our national interest to eventually get out of the industry. Because the sheer cost of overseeing the demands by the international community, it might be in our interest to move away from this. And this is why, Madam Speaker, we are investing in 5-star hotels so that we can bring sustainable jobs here. That's what we're doing. And this is why, Madam Speaker, we have educated the masses of people in Dominica so they can have not only skills to take advantage of jobs in Dominica, but the world over. That not only Dominica is their marketplace, but the world is their marketplace. That Dominicans who are now trained can apply for a job anywhere in the world. That's what we're doing. And building the infrastructure to attract investment. And this is why, Madam Speaker, we will build a new cargo port. And this is why we will build a cruise ship village. And this is why this government will build the international airport, Madam Speaker. And this is why, Madam Speaker, we will continue to build better and more improved health facilities. And when you lead up with questions just about our ability to negotiate, Madam Speaker, we will see the records of the state that no government in the history of Dominica, Madam Speaker, and Deputy General Charles Mayor, so rest in peace, was a good negotiator. But no government in the history of Dominica has been able to raise more grant funding than this Labour Party administration. Negotiation, Madam Speaker. Negotiations. And you saw it when you were sitting back in the gallery at the pledging conference in New York. Of course we negotiated this thing. Of course. Of course. I went to Europe. I went to Europe. I went to Europe. I spoke to the Canadian government bilaterally. Yes. 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 But of course, we have spent some. And some is available. We're spending it. Yes. Yes. Well, Linton, you don't understand anything, Linton. I have answered this question in Parliament. I'm going to get down to that business if you. Of course, go and read Parliament. So, but you do not have the ability to negotiate for anything. You have no knowledge of anything where government and international affairs are concerned. Nothing. What you chose to do, instead of speaking to the world, when you are 100 million people, yes. I am responding to you. You ask me questions, I'm responding to you. Yes, yes. I'm addressing you. Yes. $100 million audience. Madam Speaker, when the leader of the opposition had the opportunity to speak to 100 million people, he went and he denigrated the country, Madam Speaker. And you went, but listen, my brother. Listen, my brother. You told all lies. Lies, according to the whole of Dominica and the whole of the world. Yes. You're mischievous, and you sought to destroy the economic opportunities for every Dominican man. What you said was garbage. What you said was garbage, and you will sleep with it, Madam Speaker.
Order, please, order.
Madam Speaker, it hurts me to understand that a man who is aspiring to be Prime Minister of Dominica would go and be so dangerous against his country and the international community. That's what it is. That's what it is. And you are one of a kind in the whole world, Madam Speaker. Dangerous person. And that's why the only friend you have is a bunch of terrorists called the Polisario. That's the only friend you have. And you must tell the Parliament, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I am simply responding to question posed to me by the leader of the opposition, Madam Speaker. And I will say finally to him, Madam Speaker, because I am friends with Morocco, I have friends in the world, Madam Speaker, I have friends in the US, so we have access to intelligence information. And the only friend you have is a Polisario who doesn't have a country. And so you have to meet them in Algeria, Madam Speaker. That's where you met them. And what you must tell your colleagues, and your party is how much money you got. How much money you got. Because I know.
Order, please. Order, please. Order, please.
How much money you got? You get money and you have your colleagues hungry, Madam Speaker. Hungry, Madam Speaker. Hungry. And you're not helping one person in Marigot with the money you got for the Polisario, Madam Speaker. How much you got? Point of order, Madam Speaker.
You rise, the member, are you rising on a point of order?
The member.
Or are you rising on a point of order?
Yes, the point of
What's
order.
Yes.
The member is indulging in irrelevancies and dishonesty.
Irrelevancies?
Honesty.
Oh, well, I don't know that anything that any member says is honest unless I have personal knowledge of it.
But you don't know that he's imputing improper motives? With all the things he's saying?
Oh, no, but you didn't mention imputing
But he's imputing improper motives to say that I received the money where I received... No.
Can I get the tape to play this afternoon as to whether you said imputing improper motive? Huh?
Madam Speaker,
Yes. Order, please.
The member has said to this Honorable House that I received the money, which I'm saying to this Honorable House, I have never received. That's number one.
I heard the member say how much. If a person asks you how much.
He has imputed that I received the money. And I'm saying I have received no money. And he's also suggested that I am the kind of individual who will have resources and leave my people without. And I'm saying, I'm saying
I don't think that is imputing improper motive. I am ruling that second one, no. I am saying it's not.
That's an imputation of improper motive.
The member, if a member says that you have and you're not giving to anybody, that cannot be imputing improper motive.
It does.
And I have ruled and I'm saying it is not. Continue, please.
Let the member say what he wants.
Madam Speaker.
I don't recall seeking your permission on that point.
That the member should say what he wants? That's what you're allowing.
Member, honestly. Continue.
Madam Speaker,
the script is already
Madam Speaker,
written.
I have undisputed fact, Madam Speaker, evidence that Polisario gave money, Madam Speaker. And Polisario gave money. And if they did not give money, Mr. Linton must tell the country, he must be reminded that when he came back to Dominica from that trip, right, he said he was given promises of assistance. Where is the assistance, uncle? Otilajala, where is the money? And yes, you want to correct me by saying that you got money. I am saying to you, I will correct myself by saying you got plenty money. Plenty money you got, Madam Speaker. So when you come here to challenge, us, you make only one trip after the hurricane in your capacity as leader of the opposition. One trip, Madam Speaker. And you went to see a group of people who do not even have a village council, who do not have a little rock, a tree to call a country of their own, who the United Nations doesn't recognize as a country, who is not a member of the WHO, who is not a member of WTO, and all of the United Nations organs, Madam Speaker. That's your little friend, brother. One little friend you have in no country, and you come here and tell us about who we have. See who gave us money, Madam Speaker. And I'll tell him when I did not go to country, Madam Speaker. I went to the United Kingdom, and I sat with the government there, Madam Speaker, and I negotiated with them a package of assistance. I spoke to the Prime Minister of Canada directly by telephone. I went to the European Union, I went to the European Commission, and I met with the leadership there, Madam Speaker, after the hurricane. I went to Washington and the World Bank, and I spent a whole day at the World Bank negotiating with them because I told them I do not want only 60 million, I want 110 million. And we got it. Before I left, I told them I'm not coming to Washington for little money. And when we went there, I spent the whole day with them. They would give me a little sandwich at my lunch because we had no time for lunch. And I want to thank my friend at the World Bank. And we got help, and we've gotten promises of help because of our vision to create the world's first television.
Can the member for Salisbury stop? Just one moment. Can the member for Salisbury stop not talking again?
And Madam Speaker, we came into Parliament last month to pass the Creed legislation, and the Canadians and the British have agreed to finance the operations of the Creed for the next 5 years. And people that are helping us because the hurricane hit us. They help us because the government, they can trust the government and the leadership of this country. And that we have articulated a vision that many thought that we were punching beyond our reach. And people admired that ability that in the midst of a disaster, when your leadership was homeless, that you could think of such profound things and go to the United Nations in less than 4 days after the hurricane and to articulate a vision on the world stage. That's what has caught the attention of the world. Leadership, Madam Speaker, a country. And instead you come into New York to help us, you were there protesting on the side of the road, talking nonsense, and you come here and challenge me about negotiations, Mr. Linton. Who are our friends? Who are your friends? I can tell you all our friends who are friends. All of our friends. But only one friend you have, not even on a dry leaf, they're standing. That's your friend that you want to go and take Dominica to? That not even the UN recognizes them? The people who are advising you on foreign policy do not know foreign policy. And you must stop listening to them. And if you want to learn about foreign policy, come to VCAS, I will help you.
In the in my conclusion of this debate, Madam Speaker, I think the issues have been adequately thrashed out and dealt with. And so, Madam Speaker, I close the debate on the matter.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled the International Business Companies Amendment Act of 2019 be read a second time. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those in favor? Aye. Those against? Those against? The ayes have it. The bill will now be read a second time.
International Business Companies Amendment Act 2019.
The bill now stands committed to a committee of the whole House to be considered clause by clause. House is in committee. Clauses 1 and 2. Amendments. The question is that the report of the committee on the bill be adopted. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
International Business Companies Act, Amendment 2019, be read a third time and passed accordingly.
Seconded, Madam Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled the International Business Companies Amendment Act of 2019 be read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
International Business Company Amendment Act 2019.
The bill has been read a third time and passed accordingly.
The second reading of the bill entitled Fiscal Incentives Amendment Act 2019.
Seconded, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, it is my honor to present to the House a bill to amend the Fiscal Incentives Act, Chapter 84.51 of the 1990 revised laws of Dominica. These amendments are intended to fulfill the requirements of the European Union in respect of tax matters. Madam Speaker, the Fiscal Incentives Act is the basis on which concessions have been granted to investors. These concessions could include waivers in respect of income and corporate taxes, as well as import and other consumption-type duties and taxes. According to the Code of Conduct for Business Taxation adopted by the EU, tax measures which provide for a significantly lower effective level of taxation, including zero taxation, than those levels which generally apply in the member state in question, are to be regarded as potentially harmful and therefore covered by this code. The EU has determined that some of the legislation in Dominica are harmful for tax purposes. One of the laws identified is the Fiscal Incentives Act, Chapter 84.51 of the 1990 revised laws of Dominica. Madam Speaker, the EU is particularly concerned about the grant of tax concession, tax holidays, and the authority of the minister to approve concessions at his or her discretion. The proposals to amend the Fiscal Incentives Act therefore focuses on these aspects. In the proposed amendment, the term qualifying investment is redefined so that an enterprise is defined as a qualifying enterprise only if the primary activity of the enterprise is physically carried out in Dominica. That definition is provided at Section 3C of the amended bill. The type of activities to which the provision will apply are also stated. In respect of the authority of the minister, the framework for which the minister exercises his discretion is specified. These specifications reflect the practice that is currently taking place in the grant of concessions, but which were not previously stated in the legislation. Section 6 of the amendment bill addresses this matter. In support of this change, the role of the investment authority, in this case, the Investment Dominica Authority, in the process is stated in Section 9 of the amended bill. The matters related to the grant of tax holidays are addressed in Section 10 of the draft amendment bill. Madam Speaker, we do not expect that these amendments will impede investors in making new investments in Dominica. We recognize that the necessity of making these changes to meet the requirements of the EU. I therefore commend this bill to the House. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The bill is now before the House for debate. Member?
I'm still. So, Madam Speaker, if there are no dissenting voices, I fully support this bill and I look forward to being amended.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled the Fiscal Incentives Amendment Act of 2019 be read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Fiscal Incentive Amendment Act 2019.
The bill is now committed to a committee of the whole House to be considered clause by clause. House is in committee. House resumes, and I have to report that the bill shortly entitled Fiscal Incentives Amendment Act of 2019 passed the committee stage with a few amendments. The question is that the report of the committee be adopted. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Fiscal Incentives Amendment Act 2019 be read third and
It's been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled Fiscal Incentives Amendment Act of 2019 be read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Fiscal Incentive Amendment Act 2019.
The bill has been read a third time and passed accordingly.
Tiny die.
Seconded, Madam Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that this honorable house be adjourned sine die. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This honorable house stands adjourned sine die.